Let's imagine just for a moment that you wake up one day, look out your window, and realize the horizon is flat. Not flat earther flat, but actually flat, because Earth is now a gigantic cube. Now before you panic and start looking for your nearest edge, let's unpack what this means. A cube has 6 faces, 12 edges, and 8 corners. If Earth were a cube, those familiar blue marble curves we see from space would be gone. Instead, you'd see something that looks suspiciously like a giant die, only instead of numbers, it has oceans, continents, and people nervously asking, "Wait, are we living on the edge?" Let's start with gravity. On a spherical Earth, gravity pulls you toward the center from every point. That's why water pools into oceans and we don't all slide off into space. But on a cube Earth, things get weird. At the center of each cube face, gravity still pulls straight down toward the planet's core, just like it would on a sphere. So if you lived in the middle of one of those faces, say, smack dab in the middle of Cube America, you'd feel gravity as usual. Trees would grow straight up, people would walk normally, birds would fly in sensible directions. But take a walk toward the edge, and things start to change. As you approach a cube's edge, gravity begins to tilt slightly toward the face center. The effect? The land would start sloping, subtly at first, then dramatically. Water would slide back toward the face center, leaving the edges dry and barren. Try to build a house on the slope near the edge. Good luck keeping your coffee from sliding off the table. Now head further, to the corner of the cube, one of its 8 sharp points. Here, gravity from 3 different faces competes for your attention. It pulls in multiple directions at once. If you tried to stand there, you'd feel like you were being yanked sideways by invisible gremlins. A ball dropped in that spot would roll away, not just in one direction but in a spiraling path, desperately confused about where down even is. But the problems don't stop at gravity. Oh no. Let's talk about the atmosphere. Our real Earth has an atmosphere that wraps neatly around the sphere, held in place by gravity. Weather patterns, trade winds, jet streams, all follow curved paths thanks to Earth's rotation and shape. Now imagine wrapping a soft, squishy blanket, our atmosphere, around a sharp-edged cube. It doesn't fit quite right, does it? The atmosphere would be thicker over the flat faces and thinner at the edges and corners. Wind patterns would be chaotic, constantly trying to even things out. Storms would pile up near the edges like traffic at a 4-way stop with no lights. Tornado alley? More like tornado edges. And speaking of spinning, yes, our cube Earth would still rotate. But here's the catch. A spinning cube doesn't behave like a sphere. The corners and edges would experience strange forces. The rotational balance would be off. Earthquakes would become more common as the crust strains under this awkward geometry. And those gentle seasonal shifts we know and love, they'd become wildly unpredictable. Then there's sunlight. On a spherical Earth, sunlight gradually sweeps across the curved surface, giving us day and night in a smooth transition. But on a cube Earth, things get blocky. Each face would get direct sunlight only when it's facing the sun head-on. That means 6 distinct zones of daylight, with harsh shadows near the edges. The corners? They'd spend more time in darkness or twilight, barely catching the light. So if you lived near a corner, your entire existence might be one long golden hour, or a freezing perpetual dusk. Now let's get philosophical for a moment. On a spherical Earth, travel is intuitive. Go far enough in one direction, and you eventually return to where you started. But on a cube Earth, travel gets messy. You'd need special equipment and nerves of steel to cross edges and corners. Planes would avoid them altogether. CubeLine Airways regrets to inform you that today's flight will not be passing over Edge 6 due to excessive turbulence and a recent incident involving an entire beverage cart flipping upside down. Let's not forget the oceans. On a cube Earth, water would settle into the center of each face. Giant central oceans would form, while the edges would be raised plateaus or deserts. Imagine living on a tropical island where you can literally walk uphill and be in the desert in under an hour. And if you're wondering what would happen at the cube's poles, good luck. There aren't really poles on a cube, at least not in the way we know them. Magnetic fields? They'd be a mess. Compasses would give up. North might be that way, or also that way, or just spin until you get dizzy. Of course, life on Cube Earth might have adapted differently. Animals could have evolved to handle sloped environments. Maybe we'd develop cube surfing technology to ride from one face to another. Or cities would anchor themselves deep into the ground to avoid sliding. School geography classes would be totally different. Today we'll be studying the edge between Europe and Africa, and tomorrow, corner navigation. In the end, it's probably a good thing Earth is a sphere. Spheres are stable. They distribute gravity and heat evenly. They don't give you vertigo every time you walk to the horizon. But imagining a cubic Earth, it's a fun reminder of just how weird and wonderful our round little planet really is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check whether my coffee mug is sliding off the table again, or if I've just been living too close to the edge.